You start something with a genuine excitement, a new habit, a new role, a new task, a new product, a new team rhythm. And then, somewhere between week one and week three, the energy leaves the room. And I'm very sure listeners, most of us know this moment. This is so relatable. And it's tempting to make it personal. Like maybe I am not disciplined. Maybe my team doesn't care. Maybe I'm just lazy or people are just lazy. But what if, just think about it, listeners, the real problem isn't people. What if it's the design around people? Welcome back, listeners, to another interesting episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life podcast. Today's conversation, it's for anyone out there who cares about leadership, work culture, performance, learning products, and honestly, just being human in a world that constantly is asking us to try harder. My guest, he doesn't talk about motivation as a mindset, personality, or hustle. He explains why people invest energy in some situations and withdraw it in others, and why that's almost always a design problem. He has spent 20 years working hands on with leaders who were tired of incentives that stopped working. And he developed the DRIVE method, which is a framework for how commitment emerges through well designed challenges, progress, and journeys, not rewards. So, this is going to be a concrete, contrarian, and practical conversation, listeners. Let's get into it and let's welcome our guest, Roman Rackwitz. Roman, welcome to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, and I'm really glad you're here.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roman. And every word of that, it's kind of so relatable because not only it happens in the business or the professional settings, but in personal life also. I mean, right from a childhood, I've always been wondering, okay, I'm making my timetable, this is my schedule, okay, I'm following it on day zero, but then day two, three onwards, everything goes like, out of place. And then, you kind of start making changes, and then you get into that rabbit hole of judging yourself. And that's a tough place to be in, honestly.
Yeah, we really know that kind of stuff, right? And I mean, of course, if you're disciplined, it's kudos to you, right? It's that's amazing and it's definitely helpful. But I think all of us we also know that kind of behavior really costs energy. And there are times when it's easier to do that and times when it's more difficult to do that. And and I think because you said that we can all relate to that, I mean, this is where I struggled, and then back in university, I start thinking about how to do it differently because uh, when I was, for example, in university and then try to be disciplined and to sit down and learn my stuff and do the homework and go deeper than, of course, I had to because, of course, I want to get good grades and I want to be a good student, whatever. I realized that it could be that in the morning it was really hard for me to struggle. I struggled, so it was really hard for me to stay disciplined, to be motivated, to do something or to put effort in something. But at the same day, I, for example, in the afternoon, I went on to do my hobbies or to do sports or to play a game. And the point is that suddenly it was so easy for me to stay disciplined, to do that kind of stuff, or to be focused for hours without even getting exhausted. And this is when
Mhm.
I realized, okay, I'm still the same person. I still have the same brain. I'm still, I mean, I still have less energy now in the afternoon. I started to be interested or to get interested into system design and why one environment makes it totally easy for you to stay motivated and to bring out the best cognitive performance you can, and why another environment just made it so hard for you.
Hmm. That is actually interesting. And this is something that I realized very late in my years of studying, that environment matters a lot. I mean, in my university also, um, like I used to do my studies either in my dorm room or in my library, but the maximum efficiency, like if I really want to measure the output or the efficiency, it used to be in my room actually.
Mhm.
Because for me it's like you are like no one is watching you, and you are laser focused. There are no distractions. I mean, at least the distractions that you can't control, you can control distractions, at least in a room, at least from my perspective. And that is why for me it used to be a lot more productive in terms of studying and the output, if I want to measure it.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I mean, what you just said is probably relatable to everything where you think you have to do it, right? Or you do it for an external reason. So, because you want to get something at the end out of that. And this is why you are doing the activity itself. And so, not to be distracted by something that could be more attractive, you're trying to design the attractions or the distractions, sorry, out of the system. So you're totally right. I love that example. Thanks. So as now I realize when you say that, actually we are
Mm.
all already system designers in a particular way. You did it
Okay.
with the example that you just told us. Now the question becomes, when we know, of course, not always obviously, but when we know that we can change the environment around us to help us as a human being to perform better, whatever better means in this very context. But why are we still thinking when it comes to product design or work design or also educational design, school systems, processes? Why do we always think here we have to persuade the people to work harder on themselves instead of changing the environment so that the behavior that we want to get from them just becomes much more intuitive and natural?
Hmm. That's yes, it is a valid question, and it's a valid point in there. And Roman, one question that comes to my mind, and this is specifically related to the workplaces. Now, and this is, I think, it's an ongoing debate that whether um, working in your office or in your workplace is more productive, or when you remote work, that is more productive. And I think this debate has become much more relevant, especially after COVID,
Mm.
after the pandemic. I mean, almost all the corporates and organizations out there are, of course, encouraging return to office, mandatory return to office. But then some of the people with whom I have interacted, not many, but few of the people with whom I've interacted, my ex-colleagues and my friends, I mean, intrinsically they say, like, yeah, I'm okay with working in office, but then the other factors like the long commutational hours and the hustle of all that, it kind of puts a dent on my productivity. I I need a lot more time to settle down in office before even I start to set up my mindset into putting, work into whatever task I have. So, um, what's your thought on this, Roman?
Yeah, the point. So I think when we're talking about home office or remote work at home or working in the office, I think what we really have to figure out is that to be productive in the first place, we need access to resources, right?
Yeah.
And we need at the same time we don't want to be distracted, as you already mentioned, and
Mhm.
and of course, when we are, sometimes you have a job to be done where the resources that you need are only in the offices available. Yeah, especially when we talked about production line working or whatever. And this changed, of course, over time. So now we have the resources also at home, and
Mhm.
so this is not an argument anymore. At the same time, it's easier for us to change the environment around us when we are at home, right? But because here we are, or we have the control over the environment, as you already mentioned. Do we have the control to change something? And so there are a lot of things that makes it really, let's say, more comfortable in the first side, or on the first side, or sometimes it's really the case to do the work from home. But, for example, there are also some kind of disadvantages, like for when we are talking about creative work, problem solving. So where it's really about the cognitive performance that we need. And there we know that changing environments, so where it's not, so where things are happening that you couldn't, how to say that in English, that you couldn't forecast, surprises. Uh,
Yeah.
Also someone is coming into your office and disturbing you, and is bringing you new information, and this kind of, let's say, change of environments, this is very helpful a lot when it comes to creativity, and innovation. And because there we know by science, by research, that if you put the brain in different kind of environments, different kind of states, that it's helpful for the brain to look at the same information in different ways. And so, for example, if we have people who are working where we need their creative performance, now if they work at home, and now let's imagine they have established their amazing routine for themselves, where they're really now I'm sitting in the office, I have my time, no one is disturbing me, whatever, or is distracting me. At the first sight, of course, that looks very obvious and helpful. But for example, now one of the most important variables to improve your creativity, as I already mentioned, to be distracted sometimes, to get new information in one moment, and to meet someone, to have some short chats, and because of that, now look at the same issue from another point of view. You also design these kind of helpful variables all out of the system.
Makes sense. Roman, let's talk about intrinsic motivation. Like when we would hear this phrase, I mean, we would usually think passion, purpose, or inspiration.
Yeah,
But you're saying that's not the core of it. So in plain terms, what exactly it is, and what do most people get wrong about it?
that's interesting. I mean, when it comes to intrinsic motivation, I think to make it easy for everyone to understand it is that intrinsic motivation means you're doing something for the sake of doing it, not for something that you want to have at the end. So it's not about really, we have an amazing result at the end. So it's not about the narrative. It's not about the purpose that everyone is talking about. Oh, if we only can do that, we will save the world. Of course, that's a very epic goal, but that doesn't mean that you like the activity of that brings you to the goal, right? So being intrinsic motivated means you are really thriving in this very moment. And when we think about the situations where we can experience that kind of motivation, we have these kind of examples that I always like to take, like playing games, doing sports, or performing your hobby. And the interesting thing here is now, of course, the next question would be, why is that the case? Why do we love to play games? Why do we love to do our hobby? Then everyone says, yeah, because it's fun. Yeah, exactly. But why is it fun? And there's a huge research already going on for decades about these kind of activities. And I would say, if I want to summarize the results, you could almost say that these activities that we really love doing, when we are allowed to do whatever we want to do, so really activities that we do for the sake of doing them, it seems to be that these kind of activities are designed in a way where we are trying to overcome obstacles in a voluntary way, right? So we are being challenged by something without any need to take on the challenge. I mean, you don't have to play the game, but the game is giving you a challenge. Level 1. there is some kind of obstacle. You have to learn how to solve it. And when you solved it, hey, congrats, you learned how to overcome that. But now in level 2, it gets harder. And it's the same in your hobby. I mean, in the game, the rules are telling you what to do and what the obstacle is. In your hobby, it's you who's telling yourself what the obstacle is. So what's the next issue you want to do? And if you want to say this, or the result of that, it proves to us that human beings love to be challenged as long as they think they are capable of solving the challenge in the near future. So as long as they think they are capable of doing that. And and so intrinsic motivated for me means that I'm offering you something where you can grow with by being challenged, by failing, by learning. And I mean, that makes totally sense for an organism, right? To be intrinsic motivated to learn so that it can survive. So that really makes sense from an evolutionary point of view. And so that is intrinsic motivation.
That's honestly a relief after hearing that, because it kind of takes the shame out of it. Like, it's isn't a spark we wait for, like it's an environment we build.
Yeah, it really is. And if you the thing is that, of course, while we are moving forward, progressing as societies, we are becoming better in survival, right? So it's not, I mean, now there's no saber-toothed tiger waiting for me behind the next corner. Or, I mean, it's safe for me to go out. Yeah? And I know that if something happens, the government perhaps will take care, or my family around me will take care. We have technology that helps us to take care, whatever. So what that means is that by progressing as a society, we solved a lot of the challenges that our ancestors had to fight for. And I believe, and there's also some kind of research behind that, but of course there's always a counter research also for something. But I really believe that the desire to perform in activities like play and hobbies is the result of being able to live in an environment, fortunately, of course, that has made it easier for us to survive. But this also meant that our brain now needs it, because our brain is still built like the last 100,000 years, right? The chemistry is still the same. And so the brain has still the desire to be challenged in order to feel that it has to learn and to feel that it's progressing and becoming better in something. And so the brain is looking for these kind of activities that can give it that. And this is why we are really motivated to go into challenging activities like games and hobbies. And this is already part of the solution when you want to create some kind of situation in your workplace or with your product where you want to get engaged people. You have to ensure that they can experience challenges, that there is some kind of curiosity triggering for them where they see, oh, I wonder what will happen if I do this, or couldn't we do it this way? And then they are trying something out. They learn, and you can only learn by failing. It's not possible the other way for organisms. And then they realize progress. They realize that because they are becoming better, others can benefit from that. And this is, you can almost say this is some kind of purpose. And if you also realize that you did it by your own decisions, so you choose the strategy and you failed, but because you chose the strategy and you failed, now it's under your control to change it. And if you realize, okay, I'm moving forward based on that kind of autonomy, then you're also realizing mastery. And this is the best recipe for creating intrinsic motivating activities.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. That is interesting. And talking about system design, Roman, I mean, whether it's let's say it's a well-being habit, or it's a new learning program or a product feature, m- we do see that adoption fails, almost all the times. So what does it look like? I mean, system design for adoption. What does it mean in real life? What are the non-obvious levers that people ignore in there?
So first of all, when it comes to learning, it really doesn't make sense to tell someone why it's important to learn that kind of stuff, especially when there's a rational reason behind that. So if I say, hey, people, you have to learn that kind of stuff because we as a company, we must develop that kind of skill, blah, blah, blah. It makes sense from a company level point of view, or organizational level point of view. But we are human beings. We don't act on rational reasons. We only act on emotional triggers.
Yes.
Yeah. And the point is, when you ask, so I'm acting on an emotional basis, to do something. But then when you ask me, hey, why did you do that? I can't think about the emotion because it's subtle. So then I'm trying to think about the rational reasons why it was good to do it this way. And then I believe I did it because of the rational reasons. And so this is the difficulty here. But the point is, you can call it relevance. So as soon as you want people to learn something, you need to design an environment for them where they can experience the relevance of learning that kind of material, stuff, skill, whatever it is. And the most effective way for people to experience relevance means they have to fail before because they didn't know that kind of stuff. This is the most effective way to get people into learning, for example.
And I think that's where kind of the incentive, the desire lies, First you become aware about it, and then there's a desire, there is an incentive in doing that. And that's where I think that intrinsic motivation kind of lies in there.
Yeah, it comes from it really comes from the moment when you realize progress towards the desire, to fulfill the desire. So because of the relevance and the failing, desire came up. Now you're doing something, you're learning something, trying things out, whatever. And as soon as you're realizing progress towards solving the problem from the beginning, we get that kind of feeling, competency, if you want it this way. And the most amazing things that we learned from this kind of research is that let's say the moment where you feel most satisfied in learning, for example, when we're talking about learning right now, is the moment where you almost did it, not when you did it. That's very interesting because when you did it, it's over, right? So the opportunity to become better is gone. So you did it, but now it's over. But our brain is always looking into the future. So what is the next behavior? What can help me to progress? So the moment when you finished everything because you learned it, so far it's over. But the moment the moment before when you realized, oh, I almost got it. It was so close, but I have to try it again. But now I think I can do it. So the almost there moment. This is where you have some kind of firework in your brain, and this is the moment when we feel most motivated to go forward and even to take the next harder challenge.
100% agree with you, Roman. Yep, exactly. And talking about incentive, a lot of organizations, I mean, in fact, we still use rewards, targets, leaderboards, employee of the month or year, and whatever bonuses, because it is measurable. But then you have worked with leaders who are tired of incentives that stop working. So when do incentives backfire, and why?
Whoa, that's a huge issue that we are working with. And let's say it this way: I can tell you when rewards don't backfire because that's the easier part. It's when you give them unannounced, when it's surprising that you're getting them. Then rewards are amazing,
Yes.
because then you really see them or you're experiencing them as, for example, thankful, whatever. Um, and I have to admit, there's one thing: if you're working in an environment where everything is standardized and nothing changes, like when you're working in a production line, then rewards are amazing. Because then the only thing you have under control is doing what you're told to do, but in a way that you can get the maximum out of that, so that you can get the reward at the end, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as you have as you have to put only a little bit of cognitive performance into the activity. So a little bit of changing something, yeah, being creative, solving a problem, whatever. As soon as this is happening, rewards almost always backfire when it comes to performance. And there are many reasons for that. One, for example, is that, so the first thing is with rewards, and this is in a very general way, we are getting used to them. Okay. So if you get it the first time, it's amazing. In the best case, it's unannounced. But if you, from that moment on, you know about the reward. So when you get the reward for the second time, you are already expecting it. So there is no such high emotion anymore. And after the third time, you think more like, hey, I earned it. Now I have to get it. Yeah, we have a contract. You have to give me the reward. Where's the reward? So you are pissed when you don't get it, but you're not very excited just because you get it. But the interesting thing in rewards is that they help you to focus on the end. So the problem is, if you have to solve a problem, an issue in front of you, I don't want you to focus at the end. I want you to focus on the issue right now and to solve the problem. And by problem solving, when it comes to creativity, you have to look to the right, you have to look to the left, you have to try out new things, right? The problem is when you're just starting something, and I told you, hey, if you do this and you're successful, you will get a reward. I just framed your brain that you want to get the shortest way possible to the reward. And so that also means that looking to the left, looking to the right, trying out something new is not the shortest way anymore. It's not the most direct way. It's not efficient. And so only by offering a reward, I created an environment with rules where being creative is not the best way to do it. So we can see that this is one way how they backfire, for example. And one other way how they can really backfire, and this is a very easy one actually, and it was a huge aha moment for ourselves when we realized that, is that as soon as I give you a reward, I'm also telling you most often, I know that the activity is not likable, it's not great, but hey, please be disciplined and just do it anyway. And for that, I will give you the reward, right? So it's also from the employee point of view, it's also some kind of a confirmation that management is not changing the activity to make it better. It's just saying you have to do it. This is why you will get a reward after that. And and people or humans are experiencing things always in a relative way. Yeah, we are comparing. So now, if you have an activity, and I would ask you, hey, from on a chart from 0 to 10, yeah, where 0 means you hate it, 10 means you love it, and I would ask you, how do you rate this kind of activity? And then let's say you would say, oh, it's a job. I know it's not the most exciting activity. This is why you said it's a 6. But you know what? I will give you a reward for that. Thanks. So the point is, of course, it's, for example, unannounced. So that's a nice gesture from me. But now when I ask you the second time, how do you like the activity? Now the problem is that now you're comparing the boring activity that was a 6 before with the amazing reward that you will get afterwards. And compared to the amazing, hopefully amazing and great, yeah, and likable reward, now the activity looks even worse from a relative point of view. Now it's a 4 or a 5. So I wanted to make it better for you. This is why I gave you a reward, but actually from an emotional point of view, I made it worse without even knowing it. And this is just one example that's just crazy about the whole reward and incentive system.
It is crazy. I mean, it is actually crazy. And I think um kind of the uncomfortable part because incentives, feel like control. And
Yeah.
control, it feels safe, especially when your performance matters. But then what I also would like to add on is, Roman, that, control, it can create like an obligation. No, I think that's not the proper word. Compliance, not
Mhm.
commitment. That in order to get that incentive, because I have a metric, so for example, you're setting up a target in there for the next week, and by the
Mhm.
end of the next week, you feel like you're not able to achieve that target. I mean, you have to, like, you are scouring through ways to somehow achieve that target, because you're complying to, that commitment that you have made. And I think that is fragile. That is fragile.
Mhm. Totally. You're so right, and I love that that you took the term fragile for that, because it really is. Of course, in a very close environment, yeah, where nothing changes, where everything is standardized, whatever, then that kind of system works very well. But as soon
Mm.
as only a small variable is changing, and in the worst case, you don't even have it under control, yeah, and so, or perhaps you didn't even know about it, or whatever it is. So, because, and we all know that businesses and organizations and processes most often, or at least nowadays, are very complex. So there are a lot of these kind of variables. But as soon as that kind of variable comes into place, a fragile system breaks. And it's not, the problem is, it's not fragile, not only means that yeah, is only working in a very closed environment, but it also means that it can't adapt to it.
Mm.
Yeah, so because the rules are how they are done, it's long, it takes a long policy or whatever to change the rules again, to change the metrics, because people have to talk about whatever. And so it's not just, yeah. So and this is what so fragile systems, as long as they are working in their very closed environment, they are very efficient normally, but they are also very open to the smallest dent of what's coming from the outside, and then they are broken. They are not just not performing very well anymore or whatever, they are broken.
Yeah, yep, yeah, yeah, that's all this. And before we wrap up, Roman, of course, I have to ask you, like, because you developed the drive method.
Yeah.
In the interest of time, if you can give like a simple version of it for our listeners, like what are the core parts, and everything kind of, maybe in a summarized version, if that's possible.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So the drive method is a 5-step method to execute behavioral design in organizations. So and within yeah, we have 5 steps. I won't go through all of them now. But for
Mhm.
example, the first one is an audit, where the drive method, and within that there's a framework called behavioral solution matrix, and that kind of audit helps you to figure out what kind of motivation you need for a particular job to be done in your company. Yeah, because we already talked about that. Sometimes you don't want to have an intrinsic motivated person, because an intrinsic motivated person wants to be challenged. But if I put you into a situation where there is no challenge anymore because it's already figured out how to do it, it's repetitive and tedious, I don't want you to expect challenges. That's a disadvantage. And so here, for example, an external motivation is much better than an internal one, or an integrated one, or an intrinsic one. And so the audit already helps you in the first place to figure out, okay, we have a job to be done. We need a particular behavior for that. And what kind of motivation type do we need for that particular behavior that leads to the job to be done? And so this is one example, and another example is that's for example for the third step, when it comes to designing the solution at the end, we have the intrinsic performance journey. That's another framework within the drive method, and there we have and the intrinsic performance journey is a 5-step framework, also a 5-step framework, that helps you to design an activity that people perhaps don't really like in the beginning, but you're designing it in a way that they can start to discover the beauty in the activity, for example, because now they're looking at the same activity in a way that they didn't look at that before. And to make it very short, the 5 steps of the intrinsic performance journey, for example, are curiosity triggering, interest creating. Then the third step is positive externality. Positive externality means I provide you with the feedback at the working place that makes you realize that because you're becoming better in something, others are benefiting from that. Yeah, we are social mammals. That really helps. And the fourth step is autonomy. So how can I create the activity in a way where you realize, oh, this is where I can make a really difficult decision and it has a consequence. So I did it my way. Yeah? So this pays back into our personal growth mentality. And then we have mastery, where we realize, okay, because I did all of that, I followed my curiosity, I created an interest, I helped others that also made me learning again and becoming better. I had this kind of autonomy, and this all helped me to create or to become better in something. So we call it the path to mastery. So yeah, this is in short the drive method.
Wow. I mean, I really appreciate Roman because, yes, for our listeners and for me as well, it can be a bit overwhelming in the beginning, but
Oh yeah,
I
sure.
think the way when we go deeper into it, we start to have a lot of aha moments in there, like I have had today.
Ah, that's amazing. Yeah, I hope so too, of course. And yeah, I've written a book about this, and there, of course, you can read it in your speed, in your time, on demand, and so it helps you to go through all of that step by step without being overwhelming. Hopefully.
Absolutely. And Roman, for that, if our listeners they want to get a hold of your book, they would also like to connect with you. What
Yeah.
would be the way?
To connect with me, I think the easiest way is LinkedIn. Roman Rackwitz there. You can always find stuff from me on YouTube, on LinkedIn, for example. And yeah, the book, it's called The Drive Method, and it's available on Amazon.
Superb, superb. Listeners, I invite all of you to check out Drive Method. And to make that easier for all of you, I'll make sure to add all the links into the show notes. Find them attached along with this episode on whichever platform you are listening to your Healthy Mind, Healthy Life podcast right now. And before we close, I want to name, what I'm taking away from this. Um, listeners, I realize motivation isn't a moral quality. It's like a feedback. And when we stop shaming ourselves or our teams and we start redesigning the conditions, we get something steadier than hype. We get trust, progress, and energy that returns. It is sustainable. So, if this episode gave you language for something that you have been feeling for quite a long time, but you couldn't find any answer in there or you couldn't explain, do follow Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, not because we post constantly or we want numbers, but because you deserve conversations that make your inner world feel more understandable. And Roman, thank you so so much because this was such a unique kind of conversation, and I really thank you for explaining this because sometimes it can be a bit tricky to explain these concepts.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate it. And also your summary. That was eye-opening for me too.
Thank you so much, Roman, and to all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. Share this episode with someone who's blaming themselves for not being motivated. Maybe what they need isn't a pep talk. Maybe they need a better design and a little more compassion. Until next time, this is Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I am Sana. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you and take care.